It's easy to look around and notice everything wrong in your city. In this podcast by Every Neighborhood Partnership, join Grace and Andrew as they invite friends, activists, pastors, leaders, and city workers to discover what's good in the neighborhood. Join us for insightful conversations that will encourage you to see your city and its people in a new way.
Welcome to What's Good in the Neighborhood. On this episode, we sit down with a good friend of mine, Ariana Martinez-Lott, and she kind of shares her own personal lived experience getting to know folks that are undocumented, what that did to her imagination, her cultural understanding, and really that she spent the last 10 plus years coming alongside these folks. And so we talk a lot about proximity. Proximity matters as we think about immigration and what our beliefs are, how they're challenged, how they're supported. And then we talk a lot about curiosity. How do we remain curious to what is next and how do we get involved? And so there's some really good challenges around that. This is a great conversation. It's very personal to her story. And I hope through it, you are challenged to think about ways that you can make this just not a topic, but a personal story. So enjoy.
Well, welcome back. We are here with What's Good in the Neighborhood. I'm Grace Berg.
I'm Andrew File.
We are so excited. Today we get to chat with Ariana Martinez-Lott. She is serving as a consultant and engaged community member for local initiatives. Ariana leverages her cross-sector relationships to strengthen resident-led transformation in Fresno. In her previous role as a community relations director for City of Fresno District 3, Ariana led policy analysis, managed district projects, and proudly helped residents navigate complex issues. An avid thrifter, she spends her time smothering her two kids with kisses or trying relentlessly to convince her husband to let her bring more plantitas.
And oftentimes succeed.
Yes. Ariana, welcome to the podcast.
Hola, hola. Really happy to be here with you all.
Good. We are in our special series about immigration, just looking at this cultural moment in our nation and in our state, what's happening even locally here in Fresno. We want to hear from people that know more than us about the topic. And so we thought that you'd be the perfect person to talk to. I mean, you're here locally with us in Fresno, but also just your thoughts in general about what's happening in our nation, in the state, around the topic of immigration. So can you share a bit about your background, your family, and the formal, informal, and informal ways that you've been serving Fresno and its residents over the years?
Sí. Well, I am originally from Madera, very, very small town. I was the one who moved far, far away to Fresno.
To the big city of Fresno.
Yes. So my husband and I are celebrating our big 10-year anniversary this year. So we're really excited, dreaming about having a big fiesta, but we'll see. We have two biological children. They are both very new in school, so that's been fun, engaging as a new parent in my neighborhood and getting to know other parents and neighbors. And we also have a bonus daughter who she came to our family when she was 17. So she was our first child because we didn't have kids at the time. And so that's also tied into how this is deeply personal for me because we met her as an unaccompanied minor and we were just supposed to support her temporarily. While she made the decision if she was going to go back home. But thankfully, we built a good relationship. And so, yeah, she now has her own child and is living out of the house. So we got 2 more to go.
Wow.
But in the informal, I'd like to talk a little more about the informal ways because I think in this heavy time, reflecting, I think, on the spaces of joy and community has been very grounding. And so my husband and I have always, now looking back, we've always liked really organizing spaces for people to come together. And so when we were first married, had more time on our hands and probably less back pain, we would organize a lot of pickup sports at our local park. We lived downtown at the time with Dickie. So we would invite neighbors. There was a lot of youth at the time that were very athletic, and so they would come, and some of our friends, and pretty diverse age group, which was also really fun. And so we would organize like volleyball, basketball, flag football,
Kickball.
frisbee,
I got a couple of those
kickball,
kickball texts.
yes, frisbee, spike ball. And so those were really fun. But what I don't think we were trying to be intentional about this at the time, but now looking back, this was before Measure P funding. So the city didn't have a lot of funding to invest in renovating our parks. Dickie is one of the most disinvested parks. And so that, in a sense, was also us bringing community to a space that was underutilized and a creative way when we look at what public safety is, right? We just really like sports, but that to me is really life-giving when we think about the informal ways in which we've been active in our community. And so that's also kind of led to when we were ready to buy a house, we were also looking for a house that had a pool. And also hoping that it would be accessible to families that may not have as much access to a pool in the Fresno heat, of course. So that's also really fun for us in the summer because we like to organize
Like you intentionally were looking for a home that you're like, we want to be the party house and really share a resource.
And we from time to time just reminded folks hey, if you need a pool, hit us up. You're welcome to use our backyard. And even better for me when I could just invite folks and they bring the food. Great. Yeah. So, and being connected to a lot of the señoras, the leaders in the downtown neighborhoods, that's really fun because I think we're going on our 6th year now where we have an annual get together. And yeah, that's always one of my favorites. And last year we were really excited about, I was very nervous because I've been dreaming about this for the last 3 years and finally said, you know what, I'm going to invite some of my neighbors that we may have not gotten to know so much. About half of them came, but it was really fun doing it. So just helping organize spaces of, just connectivity amongst each other is something that we really enjoy doing.
So give me, as we kind of think specifically around immigration, I think that your heart to just create community wherever you go is so evident. How, is thinking about people as immigrants to our country, their immigration story, the effect our national and federal policies have on people. When was that you always knew it? It was already in your face as a kid growing up? Or how did you become aware that there's people living in kind of a fear state where they've been here 10, 15 years, but don't have a path forward with their kids, with their families? Where did that realization, that, I don't know, that imagination of where people are at come into your mind?
Yeah. So no, I did not always know. My parents were actually immigrants. They were both undocumented when they first came here and were farm workers for a really long time. They met here, got married. And when I was born, there was a farm worker law. It's the Reagan administration.
Reagan,
People refer to it as the Reagan administration. That for farm workers, they were given a pathway to essentially fix their papers, get a visa, and then a green card, and then essentially be able to apply for citizenship.
That doesn't fit in the categories of most conservative folks. That Reagan was the guy who actually was pro-immigrant and pro-immigration policy reform.
We can find common ground.
Yes,
in our shared self-interests. And so for me, I never knew that part of my family story because they experienced a lot of prejudice when they first came. And I think they weren't really politically involved or civically engaged. And for them, it was more we came here so that you guys can have a better life, taught us, we want you to be good humans. We want you to work hard. We want you to provide for your family. And so that's kind of what I did. And so it's interesting when I think, sometimes it's funny when I think about like my journey into leadership and how I got to know my neighbors, because it also is very intertwined with when I became a Christian. I was going through a really sad breakup. I was just really sad and needed a way to, just kind of process it all. And so I had heard these cool things about Jesus, but didn't really know who he was. So I picked up the Bible. My coworker gave me a Bible. And it's like, you look really sad. Go read this. And so I really was just really drawn to this model of who Jesus was as a human being, and the way in which you could just come to Jesus in the fullest of, who you were. And I felt that at a personal level. So initially I was just in a very, I think I met you, Andrew, at the time. Like, I think you remember that baby Christian that was just like trying
Where
to
do I go? How do I get involved?
Yes.
And I have a wonderful plan for your life. It worked out.
Yeah. I think you and a few others told me about the Pink House. And so I looked into the Pink House. It's a 10-month internship program where it's very centered on like biblical principles, biblical community, urban ministry, justice. Yes,
integrating the Bible and justice. There's a marriage there.
There is, yes. And so my intention in applying to the Pink House was really just to grow in my own relationship with Jesus. And when my internship I was placed with an organization that was working with the residents in the neighborhood and the Spanish-speaking residents primarily. And it was really like, the focus was get to know what they're doing, see how you can support them. And so they were placed primarily in the elementary school. That's really where a lot of community was happening and interconnection amongst the Spanish-speaking neighbors. They were coming to weekly meetings where they were trying to grow in their own informal education. They were going to English classes, learning about different organizations that could support their family, and like, how do you deal with mental health? Where do you go to find XYZ resources? And then also they were also volunteering in a lot of ways, primarily around the elementary school, because their shared common interest was their investment in their kids. So they would do things like organize neighborhood cleanups. They would carnivals. Yes, they would organize this delicious layout for an appreciation lunch for all the teachers. So they would have tamales, pozole, just everything you can think of. And so they would go and serve all the staff at the school, right? And so through some of those conversations, I remember specifically asking one of the leaders that was very involved. I had heard there was a part-time position coming up at the school, and I said, "Hey, you're not interested in applying?" And she kind of looked at me like, "Are you serious?" And I was, "Oh, yeah." She's like, "I'm undocumented." I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I literally do not know what that means, right? And so she very kindly helped me understand what it means for someone that cannot work under the traditional systems in the United States, right? And so I think just through those relationships, it was almost as though two paradigms were clashing in my world, because even though my parents didn't really raise us in an environment to be like politically engaged or anything, we hear it, we get it, we get the messages, right? In our society. I remember in college, this was a pivotal point for me because in college, I remember one of my peers came to me and said, "Hey, would you sign this petition? It's so that we could us undocumented students could apply for financial aid." At the time, they didn't have what's called the California Dream Act, where students in California could apply for financial aid. And so in my mind, I was like, no, absolutely not, because if you get that funding, that's taken away from me. Yeah. And I didn't pick that up from my family. I picked that up just from society, right?
Mm.
And so fast forward a couple years later, I'm 25, trying to learn more about Jesus and getting to know my neighbors. And it's like these two paradigms that were clashing, because the societal message is they're a threat to what rightfully belongs to you. But in what's going on in my everyday life, I'm experiencing these women that whether or not they're naming it, they are pursuing the shalom of their neighborhoods. They're giving of their own time, their own resources, their own money. They were putting in their own money into making these events happen. And in many ways, society had said, you don't belong, but they were still committed to creating a thriving community. So I think that was what really started that journey in like, wait a minute, what's going on here? There's this disconnect and I want to learn more because I didn't know really much at the time.
At Every Neighborhood Partnership, we believe that strong, vibrant communities start with engaged, empowered residents. But to make that happen, we need your help. EMP is on a mission to connect neighbors, create opportunities for local leadership, and transform neighborhoods through education, collaboration, and advocacy. And every dollar you donate goes directly to supporting programs that make a real difference, whether it's providing land use education, elementary literacy mentoring, or healthy spaces to help kids and families grow. When you donate to Every Neighborhood Partnership, you're not just giving money. You're investing in a future where every neighborhood in Fresno has the tools and resources it needs to thrive. Your contribution, big or small, helps ensure that our communities have a seat at the table in the decisions that affect them most. So, if you believe in students excelling, community members that are healthy and whole, and our neighborhoods thriving, we invite you to make a donation today. It's simple. Just visit everyneighborhood.org or tap the link in the show notes to give. Your support helps develop the next generation of leaders like Fresno depends on it. Donate now to Every Neighborhood Partnership. I love that you mentioned like the messages clash, like your societal messaging clashing with like your Jesus way and the things that you're being taught, you know, in your new faith, which I also think what amazing timing for you in that. I wonder, like, fast forward, you know, so many years later, here we are now in 2025, and this is like the conversation because things are happening at a rapid pace right now. People are still asking those same questions. It's not like we've moved beyond it, you know. Immigration kind of feels like one of those things where, like, if you're not proximate to it, then you can keep it at like an issue that you don't have to walk with people in it. So it's almost like if I'm not educated in it, it doesn't bother me. I don't think it impacts me, then I can stay ignorant to it. But now everyone has an opinion on it because we all have phones and platforms and we can say whatever we want to say, which is really interesting. Where I think, like, as a society, like, for example, with like the conversation around racism, at some level the conversation has evolved because of things like 2020, right? We've ramped up at some level a lot of those conversations, like, have you not read this book? Or like, have you not, done that? Where with immigration, it feels like sometimes like we don't have like necessarily like those handholds of like, we have places like markers of like, don't you know this already? Or don't you understand? But here we are at this moment where, based on people's opinions, things are moving at a really rampant rate and political rate, right? So what do you like, this is just, I kind of think off the top, like, how do you move forward when most of society is still there, where you were 25 years ago of like, well, that's a threat to me, or that's not, that goes up against everything that like I'm trying to protect.
Even if they get it, I don't get mine.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Like, maybe it's less of a question and more so just like an observation of we haven't really moved past that.
How do you make sense of this current moment?
Yes. Like, we haven't really moved past even where you were, you know? Like a lot of people haven't been able to go on that journey yet. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just thoughts.
you know, I do see where because of everything that's become so polarized at a national level, it may feel that way, and part of it is that way. And also, I think like another part of my journey in being in community with folks has been just these moments of hope. In I feel like in many ways I have been fortunate to be able to engage in different communities.
Yeah.
After the Pink House, I call myself an OG of every neighborhood partnership. Yeah, I think
Yes.
it was a year before you became the director that I had transitioned out, right?
It was 10 years ago then.
Yes. And so I had already invited me to essentially continue doing my internship on a formal role with every neighborhood partnership. And it was really like, get to know the experts of their communities, see what they're doing and how you can support them in essentially helping bridge more partnerships. And I will tell you, I think I got the opportunity to work in, at the time when I was there, probably 5 elementary schools, and it was the same common denominator. You have primarily the Spanish-speaking moms, majority of them undocumented, really working in their communities to see how they can support in small ways. But those were the things that led to like some of the more systemic transformation that it takes years to get to. And so I'll use an example. One of the schools that I was really, really involved in was Susan B. Anthony. And so these moms have now spread out into different roles in the city, right? One has become a formal entrepreneur. She started her own catering business. You have another woman who is now one of the key organizers in one of our organizations. I think she works with you all, right?
Juana Edis.
She partners with y'all. And so the beautiful thing about what they were doing at the time is they were organizing and supporting in very grassroots, natural ways. They had literally organized themselves to volunteer for crosswalk monitoring because there was a lot of safety concerns for the kids going to school. And through that, they started asking the questions of, well, yes, we can keep doing this, but how does the city invest in infrastructure? What's the process to get a street light, a sidewalk, a crosswalk? And my answer was, I don't know. And so that was, they pushed me into...
Well, you should know. Tell us. This is your job.
Right? At the time, I said, let me go find out what a council member is. Yes. And so, so they're asking those deeper questions because of their own involvements, right? And simultaneously, I was also seeing people that may not speak the same language, may not come from the same culture, but they were also trying to press in. It may have looked differently, but they were also trying to press into these complexities of these issues. So I do have hope in this time because I have seen in many ways how folks have showed up for one another, even with what you would perceive as like cultural divides. And I think that's what grounds me in hope in this time is that like there is in darkness, you have the opportunity to bring literal light. And that is, I think, the invitation that I'm trying to cling to.
Do you think there's something in the I think what we don't value is, or what we don't see is that the risk that many of these kids, residents, parents take is like they actually have so much of a spirit. Like they have to bring such a risk, such a fear, such an entrepreneurial mojo to everything they do. Because like nobody's going to make a path for them. Like they have to make their own path. And I think even sometimes like one of the reflections is like, they embody the American dream better than like I embody the American dream, right? Because I'm like, you're going for it. Like you're not waiting for a handout. Like no one's gonna make that path. Like you're gonna be your advocate for your kids' education, they're doing, where they don't even know how the school operates and can I talk to the principal but like I'm here.
And in many ways, Andrew, I oftentimes reflect. So I'll refer to the Susan B. moms a lot because I think. One, there was a time in my life where I kind of had disconnected from, it was when I got married because I was in, my honeymoon stage.
Just looking at Kevin's beautiful eyes.
Yes, exactly. Eating those cheesy breads at 10 o'clock at night. Yeah, not anymore. But I remember looking at them and saying, like, they're not stopping. At the time, institutions, organizations, it wasn't a practice to do interpreting. And they showed up consistently to meetings after meetings, and they stepped in with courage because they knew exactly what you said. If we're not here, somebody else is going to make decisions for our own communities. Whether or not they were naming that, but that's what they were living into. And I think that they were integral in setting up the expectations now. You want to talk about equity, you're going to have language accessibility, and you're going to invest in it. And I think like they really, I look at them as people who persevered through that time when it wasn't normal, expected.
Yes.
I want to ask the vulnerable question. We spoke positively towards the church. How did the church disappoint you around immigration? Or like, what frustrations have you been like, I just wish they would do this or get this?
Like, that question wasn't on the list.
Yeah, it's not on the list. but I think like in some ways your faith gave you, like, we all go through these moments, right, of discipleship, but then it all also kind of falls apart. And we're like, this is not
jaded. Yeah, you get jaded.
This is not what I hoped it would be. What was that experience like? It's a loaded question. We have a lot of history.
Yes. So there, I think a few instances.
And I ask it because we're back there in some ways for me, right? Yeah. I feel like we're back at this moment that I'm like, this is the moment for us to say, regardless of your politics, care for humans, right? Have empathy. Like we're actually in an anti-empathy moment. And so like, yeah, we're back at it. So
yeah. So how do we differentiate? Are we going to, is it anti-empathy or is it paralysis? Because paralysis to me, there is I feel like there's more hope in that. But anti-empathy, that's, yeah. I don't know that because I'm in that constant, can I move past this paralysis in this time? And so, yes, reflecting back, that was
convicting. That's convicting because it switches the frame. Yes. Right? And for those of us who like to ring the bell on the thing that's like, that's not just, be better, church. There's something there of like, okay, I can't just critique. I also have to move forward and hope. Yeah. So continue.
But I'm not saying it's just paralysis. There is definitely that anti-empathy. And I think in many senses, people would much rather not know. Right. And I'll name it, Andrew. You and I did a workshop where it was just too much for folks, and it was easier for them to criticize our framework than to press into the tension. We did a workshop around immigration, and I give folks props for showing up for week after week. And I think the feedback was from the church, we can't touch this topic again. So that was hard. That was really, really hard to hear because I appreciate when folks are willing to sit in the tension, even if at the end of the day, we're not going to agree. But to hear that it's just a topic that we're not willing to engage in. That was really hard. And I think also there was a lot of tension when Trump first came into office, because there was a lot of momentum being built around collaboration. And at the time, we had a lot of the similar threats for our undocumented community. And I think we were getting stuck between, well, we have to move on this spirit of collaboration, when that just really wasn't the reality for our families. And I think reflecting back, I had my own growing to do in maturity and understanding. And also, it's like, how can we catch up? Because our families cannot afford for us to just sit here and learn if we're ready to step in and protect them. I think I think it is, a time such as this is going to require for us to mobilize. And essentially, I saw this quote recently that said something along the lines of, the people that killed Anne Frank were following the law.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yes. The people that were protecting her were breaking the law. So I do think that there is not just an opportunity, but an expectation for the church in this time, in that we do have to differentiate between the political law and the biblical principles.
Yeah, and we covered kind of an intro of that class that we did. That, I mean, we did really straight. What does the Bible say? What is the history and policy of immigration in the United States, and what is our current law? That's all we did, and that alone was too much to handle, right? And I think because our history is so mixed, like as a church, as America, we go through these periods where we get really fearful. We blame shift, and immigrants are always an easy token for that. Like they always have been, and they probably always will be. It doesn't mean we have a terrible immigration system. Like we need so much reform in our country, but I think the experience that you've had has helped realize, like, there are so many broken, there's so many gaps that, like, you just don't know, and you kind of assume, well, just get on the path. Like there ain't no path. That path is long broken. And so what do you do with families that have been here now 2 decades and don't have a way forward? You know, it's unjust now to ask them to leave. I'm going off trail. As you think about kind of your experience, this is a little leak here. Arianna is running for council in District 7 in Fresno. We are so excited for that. As you have had multiple places, being at District Council 3, your leadership in the city, as a resident, as a parent at an elementary school, like you have so many upfront spaces where you've interacted with folks who are actively engaged, and even those who are fearful to be engaged. Like, what do you feel like your role could be to support folks that are undocumented, that are facing immigration issues? Like, how would you want to create policies? How do you want to advocate? What does that look like? How are you taking the experiences you've had into this kind of vision of your role?
Yeah. So rewind a little bit to when I started to get to know my neighbors. I had this two sentence that I would always say. And I would always say, I don't want to get involved in politics. I just want to help my neighbors. Oof. And so many times, I think over these last 14 years now, I've found myself saying that in a different kind of way. And I ultimately had to get to the point where I learned this very simple truth, is that politics impact people. And so if Jesus is in the business of people, then we're in the business of people. And so for me, I'll be very honest. Yes, you may have heard it here first, because you heard it here on EMP, What's Good in the Neighborhood, because I haven't officially launched, but I have, it is official. And so I did not plan on going in this trajectory. I didn't see myself in that kind of role. And I think that's probably how it's systemically intended, right? Everyday people don't see themselves connected to government in many ways. But having been with the moms, seeing how they're connecting their own dots in what they're trying to do in their community and some of the gaps, and also the experience that I was able to learn from working at city council, it's like local government has so many opportunities to impact people's everyday lives. And so for me, there was a few things that guided me in making this decision. My family and I had to talk about it a lot. And at the end of the day, we decided as a family, like, this is just a continuation of the collective work that I see myself being a part of in Fresno. So a few things, and there was a season in my life, to be quite honest, that I thought Christianity was just a season for me. And I'll say it was when Trump came into office.
Same.
Yes. It was pretty heartbreaking,
Yeah.
to be honest, to see how the church was engaging at the national level.
Yes.
Even though I knew that wasn't the full story, I had disconnected a lot from my faith. And as I continued to stay engaged in this work, there was always this longing, because it was very clear that if there wasn't something deeper, bigger than ourselves in this work, it can be as dark as what we're trying to fight against. And so the moms in the neighborhood, to me, and the moms in the different neighborhoods that I've been able to get to know, have been so grounding. It's in exactly what you said, Andrew. They don't have the option to opt out. So in many ways, we all have buy-in in this work. And oftentimes, undocumented people are the easiest to target, to exploit, because of the conditions that they're having to live in, right? And so and they're also the ones that are most engaging in this work as well, in many ways. So I was inspired by them. And then also working with EMP, being a part of different organizations in Fresno, I loved the collaborative spirit that's being built in Fresno. And I think in many ways, that is also a part of my desire to bring that into governing, because there are so many community-driven solutions that I don't know that are being considered within our local government. And so if we're going to lead, we cannot lead well if we don't know, most importantly, the people that are being most impacted by these issues. And then two, being willing to work collaboratively with the folks that have that have invested their time, their energy, their skills into some of our most complex issues, like housing, homelessness, transportation, local infrastructure, right? And like Homeo Hopeless Romantic, I do love Taylor Swift, but a big part of my desire to say yes to this is to also continue to press into how we can cultivate more spaces of belonging amongst one another. And so I want to help leverage that from a position of local government. And the folks that are
I
going...
missed the Taylor Swift connection.
What's that?
It's a song
She's a
called
hopeless
Belonging.
She's a hopeless romantic.
Okay. See, I'm
Yeah.
clearly sorry.
Okay. When Taylor Swift goes
loves love.
through, she loves love. And
She
when she
loves
goes
love.
through breakups,
I
she
do
makes
know,
record-breaking
yes,
songs.
Yes.
I found Jesus through a breakup. It worked out for both of us. So
There you go. Ever wondered what makes your neighborhood unique? Or the history of your city that shapes the places you love? Well, now you can explore the city like never before, right from your own car, using the Voice Map app. Introducing Every Neighborhood Partnerships, Drive Tour, a self-guided audio tour that brings your community's history, landmarks, and stories to life. As you drive through local streets, EMP's Drive Tour will guide you with fascinating insights from people, places, and events that have shaped your neighborhood. Whether you're discovering hidden gems, learning about community activism, or simply enjoying a fresh perspective on familiar places, this tour is a great way to connect to your community in a whole new way. So what are you waiting for? Tap into Every Neighborhood Partnership Drive Tour today on VoiceMap and get to know your community like never before. Download the VoiceMap app, search for Every Neighborhood Partnership Tour, and start exploring today. Fresno's story is waiting to be discovered.
I hear in what you're saying, and I love it because you also said about the women at Susan B., they didn't even realize that they were advocating for accessibility, And I think that maybe you haven't necessarily, you're saying it without saying it, is proximity has changed everything for you. You being around women and moms has changed shifted how you even view Fresno, your community, what's possible here. Yeah. So, and maybe you could talk about a little bit of the work you're doing with street vendors when you chat through this. But I go to I need information and facts when I get stressed. So things like this, I'm just give me the history. What are the facts, And I hear in your story, it's been a little bit of both. Yeah. It's, a lot of proximity, some knowledge to match. And now I can really see it for what it is in its fullness. So as you continue to step in with people that are the street vendors here in Fresno, what I hear in your story is it's not I used to be proximate and now I'm out and I'm going to city council. You continue to be up close. How important is that for you to stay close to it? And how does it continue to change your heart and your mind? And I hear a lot of hopefulness, in what you're saying too. How does it continue to kind of charge the engine of your hope?
Yeah. One of the things that I realized when I was working at City Hall as a staffer is that I think I had a lot more grace for elected officials in understanding that issues are very, very complex, especially when you're trying to lead a city. Whereas before it was you just got to do the moral thing.
This is clear.
Yes,
there's one way, easy way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I saw that it was very, very complex. And in that, with its complexities, with so many interests and stakeholders in place, for me, it's really important, even in the work that I was doing there in my own role, I found myself oftentimes realizing if I do not continually make a commitment to staying in proximity, learning from individuals that are most impacted by this, it's easy to lose sight of it and rationalize certain decisions. And me personally, I have hella fun with them. They make amazing food and they know how to, the señoras in the neighborhood know how to have a good time. So much that my neighbors, I had actually invited them to a hangout with the señoras in our backyard. And I don't think they were brave enough to go. So all my neighbors said no. And then days later, they were like,
that sounded
can you
so
let
fun.
me know when the next one is? That sounded a lot of... yes, so they fuel my heart. Just genuinely, I need them in my life for joy because I'm a recovering pessimist. I am. I hope does not come natural to me. I see the bad in everything.
I sat in that space. I sat in those parent group for about a year as a neighbor just to go. And so I don't speak Spanish,
You wish you did though, right?
I still am on Duolingo, so I'm still rocking it. But I would sit there and it frustrated the heck out of me because that meeting would be 45 minutes of chit chat. We'd have bread and we'd have some, little treats and coffee. but 45 minutes of nothing.
And you're
of
like,
nothing.
where
I'm
is
like,
the agenda?
I am busy. I'm a busy human. I don't understand what's happening in this room. And then 15 minutes of planning. But then I began to realize also that's a cultural programming I have a lot to learn. And the way that relationship is the fuel to change, not the other way around. Like not my agenda is the fuel to change. Like I come into this room to like quickly get what I want out of you and leave. Like I'm transactional, and like I want to do it with a smile, but it's still transactional, right? Yeah, I'll do it warmly, but like I'm still here for my agenda and to accomplish my tasks, not because I actually want to be with you. And so like that year,
and that's what's actually going to sustain us in this work when we realize that my well-being is connected to yours.
Exactly. Yes. So I think there's like these things that like you just can only know up front. That has shaped now the way I do community meetings. When I like run our stuff, I'm like, if you don't anchor in this, you actually want to be around these people, they know.
Yeah.
If you don't actually give time at 20, 30 minutes, if it feels like worthless time, it's probably a really good time. Like those philosophies have come like, this is actually how you get stuff done, is actually relational. And like sometimes you don't actually, your agenda just has to be thrown out.
Yeah.
And that's a good meeting. Like that was actually a great meeting probably, because that's what folks wanted. And so I think like there's so many learning lessons. Is you would give any kind of charge to our listeners, like, in these coming months, years, like what would you wish folks that maybe are disconnected from the immigrant experience or story, like as they hear news, as they drive around our city, like what do you wish folks would like begin to stir within themselves?
It feels like a really good time and a really hard time for that question. And I think I say a hard time because of all these sound bites and just narratives that are being thrown at us in so many different directions on so many topics. Well, one, if you've gotten to the end of this podcast, that's hopeful to me because it signals curiosity. And depending on where folks are on that journey, curiosity and a willingness to ask, is there something more than what these narratives are being thrown at me? And I mean, I'll give a very simple example. If maybe a person is listening to this and has not had many opportunities to engage with folks. I am a secret, and I guess not so secret, people watcher. I love to people watch, like really, really love to people watch. And so one of the things that we do encourage folks to do is, if go to Vallarta, go to El Super, pick up some delicious papaya there, and just observe people in their everyday lives with their kids, with their families, and see what are the commonalities between these families and my own. Because I think more often than not, when in my own story, what I have found to be true is that when I have gotten to know folks different than me, whether it was the undocumented community that I did not engage with up until age 25, or for me, white people. And when I started engaging in community with them, there was a lot more shared life than what I knew. And that broke down my own perceptions of what society had told me about.
So much so that you married one.
I married one, yes.
Kevin.
I love them casseroles. But curiosity and willingness to step into this tension of what else is going on beyond the sound bites.
That is a good word to end on, a hopeful one, but also, I hope, challenging for people to recognize just how much you're intaking, what you're intaking, the amount, it's easy to make people issues and not to walk with them. And so, yeah, I think that's a sweet challenge to end on. Like, what would it look like for you to just walk with people, get to know somebody, or just, I love that your little challenge there is like, just be a creeper.
Just observe. Yeah.
And
Just
like,
observe.
you know, just observe. Like, if that feels intimidating to get to know someone, just like put yourself in a place that you could see someone as a human, just like you.
Well, and that's the moment that we have also on the negative side with media is you can listen to a podcast, documentary. You have so many resources to also open your eyes without actually having to, you know, be super, super uncomfortable, but just to enter in with curiosity. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yes.
What a gift.
Claro.
Thank you for sharing your story. And, well, Ariana Martinez-Lott, District 7. All right. See y'all. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to find out more about EMP, you can visit us at everyneighborhood.org or follow us at EMP Fresno. Every Neighborhood Partnership and this podcast exists to activate, equip, mobilize, and transform here in Fresno and beyond. If you liked what you've heard, please share and review what's good in the neighborhood wherever you listen. We'll see you next time.